What's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today, and today we're going to be going over the Houston Texans Week 18 matchup against the Indianapolis Colts. The Houston Texans have a chance to be back in the playoffs for the first time in 3 seasons, as they've missed the playoffs 3 straight seasons, and it's been rough the last couple years. And you had the first 2 years of the different head coach experiments and different quarterback experiments with Davis Mills and Tyrod Taylor, and then David Culley and Lovie Smith as your head coaches. And then you had that one season where Deshaun Watson looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but the Texans' defense was totally garbage. Deshaun Watson didn't have any wide receivers, and the Texans were like 4-12, I believe, and they've missed the playoffs 3 straight seasons. Last time the Texans were in the playoffs for the 2019 season. And I don't even want to talk about how the Texans exited the playoffs that year. That's one of the worst losses in Texans history. But the Texans actually have a possible chance to match up against the Kansas City Chiefs in the first round. I don't think it's likely, but the Texans make it to the 6th seed, which there is a way for the Texans to be the 6th seed if the Texans beat if the Texans end up beating the Colts, the Jags end up beating the Titans, and the Dolphins beat the Bills, the Texans would become the 6th seed in the AFC, while the Chiefs would remain the 3 seed in the AFC, and the Texans would face the Kansas City Chiefs in the first round. Now, I think the Bills ultimately beat the Dolphins, and the Bills would be the 2 seed. So in that case, that wouldn't happen. The Chiefs would be the 3 seed. We would end up being the 7 seed, and we would face the 2 seed, the Buffalo Bills. Now, who knows what's going to happen with Jacksonville? There's a lot to happen. But if the Texans win, they are in. And there are multiple seeds we could end up being. We could either be the 7 or the 6 seed, which I think the 6 seed is unlikely. I think if we win, we are either the 7 seed playing either the Kansas City Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills, whoever's that 2 seed. The 2 seed will either be the Kansas City Chiefs or the Buffalo Bills, which I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs will beat the Los Angeles Chargers because they are not playing Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce. So if we end up being that, if we end up being that 7 seed, we'll play whoever's that 2 seed, which will be Miami or Buffalo. And so it'd be a trip to Miami or Buffalo if we were the 7 seed. And if we're the 4th seed, we are playing the Cleveland Browns. So it's either the Cleveland Browns or the Buffalo Bills or the Miami Dolphins in the playoffs for the Houston Texans if they get in. But you got to win first. You got to – well, actually, and there's another way. If the Texans end up tying with the Colts, there's a possible chance to make it into the playoffs as the 7th seed. If the Texans tie with the Colts, the Jaguars lose to the Titans, and the Steelers lose to the Ravens, the Texans will still get into the playoffs as the 7th seed. So, loss, you're eliminated. Win, you're in. And tie, there's still a small chance, but you need the Steelers to lose to the Ravens without Lamar Jackson and the rest of their players, and you need the Jags to lose to the Titans. So you could still get in as the 7th seed with a tie. Loss, you're eliminated. Win, and you're in. It doesn't matter. Win, you're in the playoffs as a 7 or 4 seed or even the 6. Let's go over some injuries for this matchup, though. The Texans' injury bug is crazy in this one, as it's been all season. So, MJ Stewart, Eric Murray, IR, injured reserve. 2 safeties right there. Dylan Horton still out with personal issues. Jonathan Grenard and Noah Brown just announced today that they were out. Noah Brown dealing with a back injury. Jonathan Grenard dealing with an ankle injury. For the Texans defensive end and wide receiver. Robert Woods, wide receiver, is questionable with hip injury. I think will be good to go in this game. Will Anderson Jr. is questionable with an ankle injury. I think he will most likely play in this one. This is a big game. Andrew Beck dealing with a calf injury, our fullback. He's questionable. I don't know about him. Graylin Arnold is on IR. Lermy Tunsil, our left tackle, starting left tackle, one of our best players. He is dealing with a groin injury. He's questionable for this one. I think he plays. Malik Collins dealing with a hip injury. He is questionable. Defensive tackle has been a starter for us this season. Sheldon Rankins, who just scored a touchdown last week on a 13-yard fumble return, is dealing with an ankle in this one. A questionable defensive tackle. I think he most likely plays, but you're dealing with more injuries. Jimmy Ward with a quad injury on IR. Tegan Quattanara, groin injury on IR. Tavier Thomas on IR with a hamstring. Tank Dell's out for the season. Jarrett Patterson's out for the season. Titus Howard's out for the season with a knee injury. Hassan Ridgway's tore his Achilles. Kendrick and Kenyon Green are both out for the year. And there's some other injuries to some practice squad guys who are out for the year as well. So this injury bug is one of the worst in the league. I think they're teams that have it a little bit worse, but the Texans' injuries this season has been one of the worst in the league, in my opinion. But for the Texans, C.J. Stroud is healthy in this game, and I think that's the only thing that's important. Sure, you're going to need help from other players, and I think if you're with some big guys that help in the defensive line, like Will Anderson Jr., Sheldon Rankins, and Malik Collins, that's going to hurt, which I do think two out of three of those guys, if not all three, will end up playing in this game. But C.J. Stroud, for him to play in this game, I think that's the biggest important part. We need him to win, and you saw that against the Cleveland Browns when we lost 36-22. Against the Tennessee Titans, we were able to take care of business without C.J., but let's just say C.J. was not available in this game, we would not be able to win this ball game. But I believe with C.J. Stroud, we are able to win any game. I'm just being truthful. With him, I believe we can win any game that we play, any team, and because he's that good. And sure, he needs some guys to throw the ball to. I think if Nico is out there with him, and if him and Nico Collins are healthy, I think we can beat any team in the league. I think we can beat the Browns. I think we can beat the Ravens, two of the toughest two of the toughest teams in the NFL. And I know those are two teams we lost to this season. Both lost we both lost by 2 scores to. But the Ravens, that was week 1. It was C.J. Stroud's NFL debut. And the Browns, C.J. Stroud didn't even play. So I think we can beat any team. I wouldn't go as far as to say as if we can get into the playoffs, we can make it to the Super Bowl. But I think we can compete with any team, which if you can compete with any team, you can end up beating any team in this league, and I think that comes to say with the Houston Texans. And if C.J. Stroud plays in this game, which he is going to play on Saturday, which is the first national televised game we have all season, which is crazy with how good Stroud has played this year. We better get like 2 or 3 national televised games this year, with only getting 1 this year. But I think, sure, you're dealing with a good team with Gardner Minshew, who's played great this year and has stepped up with Anthony Richardson being injured. Michael Pittman has done a great job at wide receiver number 1 for the Colts. Their defense has been good, and Jonathan Taylor has been good, and he has killed the Texans in the past. But there was a very, very interesting Week 18 matchup between these two teams last year on Week 18. Last year, the only thing that game meant for was draft pick rights, who was going to get the first overall pick, where, that was the only thing that was literally the only thing that, mattered in that game. There was draft picks, and both teams were terrible. But now this year, both teams have turned things around. The Texans 9-7, the Colts 9-7, and one team will clinch a playoff berth with a win. And I believe that team will be the Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud lost to the Colts once. I do not have them losing to the Colts again. I think the Houston Texans beat the Indianapolis Colts 26-24 on Saturday night in Indianapolis. The Texans and the Colts have another Week 18 thriller, but this time a Texans win in Week 18 doesn't make the Texans fans absolutely crazy. It will make them absolute crazy, but this time it will make them absolute crazy in a good way. The Texans will be back in the playoffs once again with a win over the Indianapolis Colts, which I believe they'd get. But man, if they don't get this win against the Colts, I will be heartbroken. I really will. Not getting a win against the Colts, not getting into the playoffs, it's not a disappointment to me, because this year has been such a great year. playoffs or no playoffs, it is not a disappointment because 9-8 compared to what we've been in the last 3 years. Having a future like we have with Tank Dell, wide receiver. I know he's not going to be with us on Saturday, but or through the playoffs at all either. But what we've seen through our future with Will Anderson Jr., Tank Dell, and C.J. Stroud, and some other guys on this team, D'Amico Ryans is the head coach. What we've seen through our future and the improvement we've made from the last 3 years, it's already such a amazing season, and playoffs or no playoffs is still a great year, and there is no disappointment to this year for the Texans, but it would be so much more special for this team if they can make this another playoff year for the Texans, and C.J. Stroud to go to the playoffs in his rookie season, and despite missing 2 games with a concussion. Let's see what happens this Saturday. I'm excited. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, Texans Nation. Give me your predictions, and peace out. Let's go, Texans.